system. We were really fortunate this year because it did not melt as fast as we thought it would. So it has been kind of gradually going into the surface systems of Northern California and into the State Water Project. But we can't count on that for every year. So we need to figure out, how do we replace that storage should we lose or have reduced snowpack in the future? And that goes for both the Sierra Nevadas, which is the headwaters of the State Water Project, but also here locally. Our snowpack up in the San Bernardino Mountains is very important to our water supply, so we need to think about that as well. So this was our plan going into this year as a state water contractor. We meet with all of our retail agencies. We serve 15. We said, how much direct delivery of state water do you think you can take? And then we figured out how much can we put in the ground. And so we took a strategic approach this year. We had available to us something that's called Article 21 water. And Article 21 water is only available under very specific conditions. And those conditions are basically when all of the conditions, the requirements in the Delta are being met. So all the biological opinions are met, everyone's gotten the water that they're supposed to have. If there's still additional water available in the surface system of Lake Oroville, State Water Project, we can take Article 21 water. It doesn't cost anything extra. It just goes through the system and gets delivered to you. So we were really fortunate, again, because of the huge rain years, to get 8,236 acre feet of Article 21 water. This is on top of our regular allocation, which is 102,600 acre feet. We have a little bit of water stored up in Kern Delta Groundwater Bank, and we did a few exchanges in order to make the system work a little bit better for our partner, Crestline Lake Arrowhead Water Agency. So we had 118,000 planned for to deal with. I will tell you, one of the reasons that we took this strategic approach was because, as you know, we have SARCUP as a water banking system here in Southern California, and we were intentionally trying to create a surplus above and beyond our allocation, so that should the SARCUP agencies want to participate, we might have a small amount of water that we could sell to SARCUP. It didn't exactly work out how we thought it would, just due to some system constraints, but we were able to prove that by taking Article 21 water early in a year, we can develop a surplus of our allocation that could potentially be available for those SARCUP agencies and the groundwater banking. So that was a great exercise by the different agencies to figure out, in real life, applying SARCUP, does it work? And we found that we could do that. We plan to direct deliver to some water treatment plants within our service area, 31,000, and everything else goes in the ground. Our goal was 70,000 acre feet of groundwater recharge in Bunker Hill and the Yucaipa basins. So that leaves us 16,400 about of what's called carryover at San Luis Reservoir that is available for next year, and it basically kind of front loads your allocation for the following year. So that was our plan. As you know, all great plans need a little tweaking as you go through. Our direct deliveries, this is just a map I wanted to highlight so you could see. If you can, let's see, for those in the audience, does this show up on the screen, on your screens, the arrow? Okay. So we deliver the blue dots, are Bear Valley Mutual Water Company, and East Valley is the yellow dots. Yucaipa Valley, I believe, is green over here to the far east, and Fontana Water Company to the far west, and City of Redlands kind of in the middle. And West Valley Water District is also in brown on the west. So this is in purple. This is all of our pipelines that we run on behalf of DWR to deliver state water. One other one I wanted to note here is on the bottom is San Gorgonio Pass Water Agency, and they are another state water contractor, but we actually run the system to get them their state water from basically, it's called the East Branch Extension. So that's how our system works for direct delivery, and this year especially, we are learning how important direct deliveries are during really high water years on the State Water Project. The second part that we have is the recharge of groundwater basins. And so in the red, you will see that we have the San Bernardino County flood control basins. Those are existing facilities that we recently, I think it was just a few months ago, we signed a master agreement to basically use those facilities when there's capacity available, obviously not being used for flood control purposes, but use those facilities for groundwater recharge, 7 different ones, and jointly work together to build or improve facilities for future water recharge. So we just signed that with San Bernardino County. And then in the green, we have the San Bernardino Water Conservation District's recharge basins, which are in full operations right now. And so they've been getting as much water as they can in the ground. They're on track for maybe even their very highest year ever.
That's great.
Which is over 100 years of existence. So great work by the Conservation District. And then I wanted to point out in the yellow star is Seven Oaks Dam, because I'll talk about that in a minute. And the pink star is the new enhanced recharge basin expansion. And those two things come into play when I talk about some of the challenges that we have had this season. So first off, Seven Oaks Dam, everyone's favorite topic, I'm sure. I swear I've been working on Seven Oaks Dam for 12 years, I think. Seven Oaks Dam releases made it very challenging to basically get water in the ground because they go off of a very specific water control manual. And while they do work with us occasionally, basically if there's a date on the calendar and that says they need to release everything, they just open that valve. And so they were releasing more water than we could divert throughout most of the season, actually, and into about July. There was surface water in the Santa Ana River due to the Seven Oaks Dam. And there was also a lot of river our flow coming down Mill Creek. Again, that snowpack from our local mountains was melting, coming down Mill Creek and being basically recharged or flowing through the Santa Ana River. We also had the enhanced recharge construction activities. If you can believe it, we had a 100% allocation, a high water year in Southern California, and we were under construction on a project that has been in planning for 30 years. So I don't know how all those stars aligned to all happen in the same year, but it did make it challenging because we have construction going on out there. We had to turn off a couple valves. We have equipment going, all those kinds of things. So we have been kind of maneuvering around where we're putting water and trying to manage the conditions of the basins. There were some State Water Project facilities constraints, especially at this place called Pear Blossom, which is just kind of north of where we get our water at Devil Canyon. And while the system is meant to be able to deliver the full allocation for the state water contractors, it is meant to deliver water from January to December. And as I said earlier, we did not find out how much water we would get until April. So all the state water contractors started trying to move their water in April. And so there was kind of this log jam at Pear Blossom. And so we're a very small capacity compared to like Metropolitan. And so we just kind of have to maneuver and try to work together to get all of our water through there. But it has been a constraint in getting the water down into our region. DWR, again, I'm not blaming DWR. It's just that they didn't know, again, how fast that snowpack was going to melt and if they should make a full allocation this year or not until April. And so that really made a huge challenge. And so this all kind of leads to if we can't get all of the water in the ground and we can't deliver it all, and it's sitting at San Luis and we have a wet year next year, perhaps it might spill and we will have loss of that carryover. But if San Luis and Oroville Dam are all full, that puts us in a very good position for our allocation next year. So while, you get sad, loss of every drop of water, wet year in Southern California and wet year in Northern California is nothing to complain about. So we're doing the best we can to manage the resources that we have. So these are the opportunities that we saw this year. Intense collaboration with DWR, again, trying to get every drop in the ground, and also with the East Branch agencies. We're currently talking with them, and you guys might be interested someday. Can we create a groundwater bank that is north of Pear Blossom, but south of the Delta? So we get our water through, we park it somewhere along the State Water Project, and we just hold it until our local facilities can take it. So that's something that we're investigating. We really amped up our coordination with our local retail agencies, the Conservation District, and San Bernardino County Flood, and that was a tremendous piece of progress. We are looking for additional areas of recharge, which I'll talk about and show you a map, and also just looking, can we extend the recharge season? So we usually take the facilities here locally offline in January and February for maintenance. We're looking at, can we compress that timeline and start using those facilities in late January and through February in the future? And then, of course, we're already working on constructing new facilities, as you can see in our photo. So that leads me to the Habitat Conservation Plan. And where are we? Because all of these projects and the things that we want to do in the future are permitted through this regional comprehensive environmental permitting program. So right now, the plan is sitting at Fish and Wildlife Service, and they're writing the NEPA document that they need to in order to issue our biological opinion and our permit. As soon as we kind of know everything that's going to be in that NEPA document, we will put out the final EIR. And we will also be coming to you with a Joint Powers Authority agreement for basically working together to implement this plan over the next 50 years. It is a just mind-boggling plan. It is the model for the whole country. We're involved in a national group, and they're always asking us, how did you do this? How did you make this much progress with 11 partner agencies? This is the list right here. 11 public agencies permitting 100 water supply projects over the next 50 years on a shared permit, sharing the costs and sharing the benefits. What a tremendous model that we have. So in this figure, you'll see it's kind of hard, but you just need to see the colors. These are all of the different covered activities that we have in red and yellow. So new recharge activities, pipeline maintenance, recycled water projects, all of these different things are included in this plan in the whole upper Santa Ana River watershed, which is really quite remarkable. That is all based on the conservation strategy, which we are moving in parallel, restoring tributaries in the Riverside area, putting land into conservation up in the alluvial fan where our enhanced recharge project is, breeding fish for translocation into the mountains. So it all fits together, and we do expect, fingers crossed, we can get our permit around the end of the year. It's kind of all up to the Fish and Wildlife Service right now, but they are working hard on it, and we're the only habitat conservation plan that they're working on right now, so that's good. So that brings me to the next big regional thing that we've done recently, and it kind of used the HCP as a model. So if we can band together and get permits, can we band together and get funding? My worst nightmare was that we would spend 10 years doing this plan, get all these permits, and then nobody has the money to build the projects. And as you know, time is of the essence. We need to be building projects. And so we designed Watershed Connect, which is it is a joint powers authority. You pay into it what you get out of it. We love having more members, of which you are, which we very much appreciate because it shows the solidarity of the region to the EPA. This program is based on, if you see in this figure, basically, if you haven't seen this before, I know at least a lot of the board members have, but it's based on this idea on this map that if someone out here on the east end in Yucaipa invests in recycled water that they deliver to their customers, that frees up either imported water supply or groundwater resources that everyone else benefits from. If we do recharge of stormwater up here near Seven Oaks Dam, that serves as a diluent for the recycled water that some of the other agencies are putting in the ground just downstream. And so it's based on this concept of everything is connected. Our surface water, our groundwater, our environment, wildfires, all those things are connected. And so if we work together with this approach of shared benefit, shared responsibility, that we have more leverage and we have more capability to do the job that we need to do. And so it went great. We were able to get this program and a JPA started in 6 weeks, which is really unbelievable, but it was due to the commitment of all of the agencies and our partners. And it's focused on preparing for the future. Again, I'm not worried about this year or next year, or even 5 years from now. I'm worried about 10 years, 20 years from now. And so getting those infrastructure investments done, being resilient in the face of climate change, having an ecological system that is healthy and resilient that we can continue to get permits, improving our water quality, and I would say one of the biggest priorities is drought resiliency. And that's what this project and this program is meant to support. So what does that look like on the ground? This is a great example of how we made this program work. We convinced the EPA that we could not only do this programmatically, but that we could essentially use one project as matching funds to fully finance at low interest a different project, which usually they like to do it project by project. But we said we have a whole regional program of work. We're all doing this in the best interest of the people that we serve, which in many cases are shared. And so how do we maximize the investments of one agency or one project to build more? So This is a project, Weaver Basins, that San Bernardino Valley has built. We knew we were going to build it anyways. It's $70 million for this and the pipeline that connects it to recycled water. And we said, can we use this as the matching funds to build another project? And so they allowed us to use this investment that Valley made using our reserves, so cash, and that allowed us to finance 100% of our share of the Enhanced Recharge Stormwater Capture Project. And so we were able to leverage one project that we had money in reserves to finance over 35 years at low interest another project. And this is some recent drone footage of the Enhanced Recharge Project, which I'm happy to report is ahead of schedule and under budget right now, and it's going very well. So we can't wait to have a grand opening with you all someday. Sometime in 2024 for sure. But that's just one of the ways that this creative financing program was able to work for all of us. The EPA has asked us to write up a white paper or build some sort of model that they can use to basically promote this effort and this way of thinking and this way of doing business across the country. So that was, really encouraging. So that brings me to, what are we going to do next? This is our active recharge projects. You all are 28% share of the water rights to the Seven Oaks Dam water and also these active recharge projects, 198,000 acre feet in total. This is where they sit at the base of the San Bernardino Mountains, and so we are working actively on design and planning for those projects, and then the next thing will be, of course, finding that funding. We've already set aside $36 million to go towards building these projects, kind of the lowest hanging fruit, as they say, and so you will see that coming before you here in the next probably 6 months, I would say, for an update, because it's starting to go really fast. And that brings me to kind of the next big initiative that we're taking. These active recharge projects, as you can see here, right along this front, that's all the San Bernardino National Forest. 67% of our local water supply comes off of the San Bernardino National Forest, and you can see these new facilities are right at the interface with the National Forest. Basically, the storm flow comes out of those streams and tributaries and goes straight into these new basins. And so what we realized was that the San Bernardino National Forest has not been managed to prevent catastrophic wildfire. They told us they don't even have enough money to do NEPA. And so a couple years ago, we started these conversations on how can we work together to help you build capacity or help with planning and figure out what are the highest priority areas. I'm not going to lie, I honestly wanted to be around the table so I could help direct what the highest priority areas were. They're just upstream of our active recharge projects. But if you don't have a voice in the conversation, then you won't be able to help create priorities. And so we've been working with them for 2 years, building the relationship, and they are basically finding that they're having a big influx of money in the coming years from the state and federal government to prevent catastrophic wildfires, but they need a plan. So we are working with them, a pretty big group, about 80 different local stakeholders and the Forest Service, and trying to figure out what do we need to do to have a healthy, resilient national forest in the future to protect our water supply, our communities, and all of the environmental resources that we have there. And so right now we're working on a vision statement with them and a strategy and identifying funding sources, but basically trying to get out ahead of it. The worst time to react to a catastrophic wildfire and potential mud flows is after it happened. In fact, I've heard figures that it could cost 5 times to 10 times as much to clean out basins as to kind of do the management work that needs to be done on the forest. So we're really trying to get out there in front of that potential risk. And we are also working on, so we're protecting the recharge basins, then it goes in the ground, then what? How are we going to manage this amazing asset that we have in Bunker Hill Basin for long-term advantage? We have more storage capacity in Bunker Hill Basin than Lake Shasta does. And it's enclosed, so we don't have to worry about evaporation, but we do have to figure out how do you manage a shared resource, a shared asset, with all of the different pumpers who pump out of there and all of the different contributors to the basin itself, whether it's stormwater, recycled water. And so Craig and Tim and I and your team have been working very hard to promote, again, the idea, let's not worry about the past. Let's not worry about what yours and mine and all of these different things. Let's kind of break down the territorial instinct that we all have to say, let's look to the future. How can we manage this basin to its greatest potential? how do we make decisions together so that we are really optimizing this amazing asset that we have and planning for that future? And it could be things like if the basin is from here to here in elevation, we do these 3 suites of things. Maybe it's pumping changes, or maybe we add new infrastructure because we want to move water around, or storage accounts or things like that. So we're just getting that kicked off, and we are trying to make sure that there are as many of the different pumpers and the interests from the region involved in what does a healthy, sustainable groundwater basin look like to you in 30 years or 40 years or 50 years. And so we're getting that kicked off, and I'm really excited. It's not going to be easy, but I think it will be well worth the effort when we look back and we say, oh, wow, that's a well-managed basin and everybody is benefiting from it. And finally, I get to, I don't have to tell you guys about SB 366, but I do want to emphasize San Bernardino Valley's commitment to this. Again, Craig and I just had a meeting recently where we were talking about this model that we've developed in the Santa Ana River watershed, and how by working together and developing these multi-benefit projects, it helps everyone. It saves money, it stretches the resources, and why can't we do that on a statewide level? And so I really believe that SB 366 is that vision that we need, and setting goals and targets and holding people accountable is how you get things done. So we are fully committed to getting this passed next year, and I've committed to Craig that I will increase my own capacity to be part of that team. But I really think that it has to get done, because we can't just, as a state, continue to say, oh, next year, next term, next water cycle, whatever it might be, because we just don't know what the future holds. But we do know that the future does not look like the past, and so we cannot continue to do business as we have always done it. So with that, I am happy to take any questions that you might have.
Okay, are there questions for Heather?
More of a comment, Heather, and thank you for being here today. You guys do some great work up there. We appreciate our partnership with you. And one of the things that you said just clicked in my head, and I turned to Craig and I went, this is bringing me back to Bob Stockton, where you're talking about having so much water and having the difficulty of moving it, go big or go home. Bob always wanted to upsize the pipes, and we're already got the trench in the ground. How much is it going to cost for us to go from a 24-inch to a 36-inch, and the engineers start penciling, so it really is about what we can do long-term range planning, right? And when we have all of these wet years, to be able to capture every single drop that we can, because you're right. It's a shame when we have to let something go out because we don't have the capacity to be able to move the water. And so just thank you for your good work. Thank you for the partnership. I know Craig really appreciates the collaboration, and we appreciate partnership with your board and having all of the contact that we do with them. So thanks for everything that you do.
Thank you.
Great. Other questions or comments? I have a couple of things. First, thank you for a great presentation, and as Director Denstedt said, all the work that you're doing, and it's a pleasure to work with you guys.
Thank you.
So that part is really favorable. Question, there was at one time something called the San Bernardino National Forest Association. I don't know if they still exist. Back in the days when I worked for Southern California Edison, that was formed. Edison was a significant player. I don't remember if water districts were, but if they still are there, they could be a way to try to find some funding for the work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And clearly it's in Edison's interest to not have big wildfires as well as in ours. And really every other utility and affected government. So I think there are ways that we can look for funding, but if the National Forest Association is still out there, they could be a useful player.
I'll look into that. I have not heard of it. It might be defunct, but I will maybe revive it.
It may be. If you want to track a bit of what it was, I'm available.
That'd be great, yeah.
So-
You're right. So Edison is sitting around the table with us. CAL FIRE, the Forest Service, a whole bunch of different partners from up in the mountain communities. Again, this is not just a water problem. This is a much bigger problem than just us, electrical utilities as well. And so the more, I think, voices we have, it does build a better product in the end, and it makes you more eligible for grant funding.
Yep. So, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Great
all.
presentation. Really
Appreciate it.
appreciate it.
Have a great meeting.
President Gardner, I'd like to thank Heather also. We've been, I like to think of it in the trenches for a long time together. Heather and I grew up in water. She was on the other side of the table from us and the watershed when we were negotiating with her as a Fish and Wildlife Service biologist. And Heather was the person that would come to the table and say, wait, there are solutions, let's figure out how to get there. And it totally changed the model from this very confrontational style with the regulators to a collaborative style. And she's brought that to Valley. And, you know, sometimes I lose sleep at night because I feel like we're just pushing an enormous boulder uphill all the time to change the way that water agencies have been doing business for decades and decades. But I think we're going the right direction. We both feel like we're onto something. And as you can tell from her presentation, she has led enormous change in San Bernardino and in our watershed. And we're just taking the roadshow statewide. And she's been a fabulous partner. Thank you very much, Heather. And thank you for coming. Heather is very busy, and appreciate her making time to do this. But I love our partnership, and we're going to continue to do good things. So thank you very much.
It's an honor to work with all of you. You guys are great.
So,
Thank you.
great. Thank you.
Have a great meeting.
Okay, brings us to consent calendar. Do you want to pull anything?
Mr. President, I do want to talk about a change of wording on one of the minutes, if I could.
Of course.
It would be on 6B, and it's just kind of a switch of the words. I think it would be a better way to state that Director Rizvi stayed for the training of A, rather than, because it almost sounds like she didn't complete. So I would just kind of change the wording that she left at 12:50 before item 4B was conducted, but I would say that she left at the conclusion of item A. Does that,
Okay.
it just, it almost makes it sound like she didn't walk through the whole thing. So it just kind of a change of
Okay.
the way it's presented.
Well, we can incorporate that
Unless, you
recommendation
know-
into the approval.
If Director Rizvi doesn't care, that's fine, but I just kind of looked at it that way, so.
Thank you.
So that would be my motion, and
So your motion is to approve the consent calendar with that change to
but that
6B.
slight to be that she left at the conclusion of item 4A.
Okay.
I'll
We
second.
have a motion and a second.
I'll second.
Tammy, when you're ready, would you please do a roll call?
Director Torres?
Yes.
Director Rizvi?
Yes.
President Gardner?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much. Do we have anything to add to the agenda, Mr. Miller?
Nothing to add today.
Okay, our action agenda, we begin with 8A, approving a project budget in the amount of $710,000 and award a professional services contract to MKN and Associates in the amount of $559,590 for the Jefferson Avenue Water System Improvement Project. And Mr. Kwai is here for a presentation and answer any questions we may have.
Good morning, Directors. This is regarding the Jefferson Avenue Water System Improvement Project. This project is for developing a new water line and 2 interconnections with the adjacent Rancho California Water District along Jefferson Avenue, which aims to provide adequate water supply for retail customers within the undeveloped areas of the Murrieta service area, known as the Innovation Zone. This project was not accounted for in the board-approved fiscal year 2022, 2023, and 24 capital improvement and facilities plan. Consequently, a CIP amendment of $710,000 is being proposed to cater to the new project under the Murrieta Added Facilities Charge Fund. It is important to add that the City of Murrieta has procured funds from the American Rescue Plan Act, or otherwise known as ARPA, which will be used to finance water improvement projects within the Innovation Zone. Any additional infrastructure costs not offset by the ARPA funds will be covered by the Murrieta Water Added Facility Fund and subsequently recuperated from the capacity charges incurred by the property owners who connect to the Western's water system. So on February 15, 2023, Western Board of Directors authorized the general manager to execute an interagency financial contribution agreement with the City of Murrieta. This agreement permitted the transfer up to $7.4 million in ARPA funding from the City of Murrieta to Western. This is for planning, design, and construction of water infrastructure within the boundaries of the Innovation Zone. We expect that all the costs for this particular action will be covered by the ARPA funds. At present, staff seeks the board's approval to amend Western's fiscal year 2023-24 capital budget and authorize the design of the Jefferson Avenue Water System Improvement Project. So this is only for the design portion of the project. The total proposed project budget amounts to $710,000. This includes design and construction support services, and that's for the contract for MKN worth $559,590 and a budget of $85,000 for Western staff time and a 10% contingency. It is important to note that the ARPA-funded projects are exempt from obtaining NEPA clearance because this is written into the law, and we're going to be using this firm for doing the CEQA portion, the California portion, as part of the Design Act. In conclusion, the Jefferson Avenue Water System Improvement Project is a vital initiative, and it's going to showcase our commitment to infrastructure development and reliable water services within the Murrieta area. And we request this item to be supported. On the line, we have Safa Kamangar of MKN, who is available to answer questions. He's calling in. I might note that he's under the weather, and he's just to protect our health. He's calling in and not on Zoom.
Thank you, Derek. Happy to answer questions.
Are there any questions?
I do have one. What's the timeline on this?
Well, the design of the project, as soon as we get this underway, we'll be immediately designing. So it's probably going to take about 4 months for us to complete the design, and then after that, we'll go out to bid. And I would expect the project will take about a year to construct.
Okay. Do we know what the timing is on the ARPA stuff? I think they have timing for the grants. Do we have any?
ARPA needs to be expended by 2025, the end of 2025.
Okay, so we're on a pretty tight timeline.
We are in a tight timeline, but we do believe we're going to do it. The strategy that the team has taken is that we're also teaming up with the city for the project that was previously approved, that's along Madison. And our concern there was we have to have the street in place before we can put the pipe. So basically, we're doing two twin projects, the Jefferson Avenue one, which we think we can get done faster, and really it doesn't have as many challenges with property purchases. And so that's why we're doing it this way. And that way we'll meet the grant requirements.
Okay, great.
At this time, I'm not concerned about spending the $7.4 million. We've already spent 1.4 on annexation. We'll spend $2 million with buy-in to Rancho system, and the rest will go into infrastructure. So not too concerned about spending the money
Okay.
by the deadline.
Well, but I want, I want completion and projects done too, so when we're spending the money. So, and I appreciate the gentleman calling in. Hope you certainly feel better. And sir, do you feel like you can meet all these timelines?
Good morning. Yes, thank you. And sorry I couldn't make it in person. Yes, we've done a lot of study during the preparation of proposal. I think we have a really good understanding of the project. We have a good plan in place. We are aware of the grant requirements, and that's how we put our schedule together. So I'm confident that we can deliver the project on time for construction.
And on budget, right?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Budget.
That's what I like to hear. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Of course.
That's all my questions, Mr.
I
President.
have one follow-up question, just based on the way I heard you say something, Derek. Said, we can't put the pipe in until the street is there. I'm hoping that doesn't mean they build a new street and then we come dig it up and put a pipe in it?
No, that's the approach. So the previous project that we approved at the last month's meeting was for along Madison.
Right.
And Madison, they have to do considerable grading. And so for that reason alone, we didn't want to put a pipe in and have it redug up.
course.
We're working directly with the city to put it on their plans to put the pipeline in as the street is going in.
Got it.
Yeah,
So
Madison-
pavement is post-construction for our project?
Right.
Okay,
Madison is raw land.
Yeah.
There is no street.
Right.
So we have to wait till they acquire right away, and those are all the constraints that we're worried about.
Yeah, the city still has a
It's out
couple of
of our
challenges.
hands. You know, they have to move their project
Yeah.
forward.
Understand completely, and that's the right way to do it. It's just,
Yes.
too often, I have seen in the utility world and in the city world, a street gets paved or repaved, and then whatever utility comes along and says, yeah, I gotta dig it up now. So,
Yeah, we try and stay ahead of
of
that.
course we do.
And I would
And
move
we're good
to,
at it.
I would move to approve.
I'll second.
Motion and second, any discussion? Any public comment, Tammy?
We have none.
Okay. When you are ready, would you please do a roll call vote?
Director Torres?
Yes.
Director Dinstead?
Aye.
Director Roten?
Yes.
Director Risby?
Yes.
President Gardner?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Our next item is also Mr. Kawai. It's approving a project budget in the amount of $381,000 and award professional services contract to BSE Engineering in the amount of $285,667 for permanent generator at the Mockingbird Pump Station.
Great, thank you. This project involves the design, procurement, and installation of a permanent generator at that Mockingbird pump station. The primary objective of this initiative is to ensure continuous water supply to the retail customers of the Riverside service area, even during power outage episodes. The permanent generator at Mockingbird Pump Station is not in the current board-adopted fiscal year 2023-24 capital improvement and facilities plan, and as a result, we're asking for a budget amendment of $381,000. Notably, the funding from the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program is anticipated to cover approximately 75% of the total project cost. The balance will be covered by Western's Fund 204. That's the Riverside Potable Water System Improvement Fund. The Board of Directors adopted Resolution 3151 on February 17, 2021, supporting that application for the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program by the California Governor's Offices of Emergency Services. We were successful in getting that grant, and so we are proceeding with putting in this generator. The Mockingbird Pump Station currently houses a Tesla utility battery, which, despite facilitating power utilization during peak energy cost timeframes, cannot support prolonged operational durations. In other words, it helps us with avoiding time of use costs on an hourly or roughly day basis, but for more multi-day outages, it won't serve the need. So that's why we're putting in the emergency generator. So what we're doing is that we have we put out a request for proposal that was issued on May 16, 2023, for the design and construction support services, and staff evaluated all those proposals and found that BSE Engineering submitted the best proposal, and their proposal stands at $285,667, and the proposed design phase budget includes a 10% contingency, which is $381,000. So we're seeking a board approval for this item. And on the line, we have from BSE, we have in person, Ross Solcombe, and he'll be the project manager for the project and is available for answer question, as am I.
Okay. Do we have questions?
No, move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it, but I have a question.
Thank you, directors. My name is Ross Slocum, as Derek mentioned, with BSC Engineering. So happy to answer any question.
Thank you for coming today. We really do appreciate it when we're talking about these types of things. So have you reviewed all of the plans, and did you have any concerns or questions that needed to be changed with staff?
No, we understand the scope and budget of the project and happy to move forward. The challenging part of this project, of course, is the constrainment of the site. So we'll, of course, work through that and present options of how to move forward with the project. So excited to get going.
Great. And, you know, I think we were all at the CASA conference, or 3 of us were at the CASA conference. And one of the things that was very entertaining was one of the gentlemen that came to CASA was talking about how they had a catastrophic event that it was a cascade thing. They had a couple of days off, they had a big rainstorm event, and the generator that they had was sitting in 6 inches of water. So I just want to make sure that we're looking through the right filters, because this was a cascade of events that they never thought would ever happen, that completely shut their treatment plant down and their emergency generator backups and all the things, and it just all went to, it was all bad. And the pictures were very fascinating. So I would just share that story with you.
Absolutely.
And make sure that we're looking at it with all filters before we start spending.
Absolutely. And I'll let you know, as part of our team, we do have SOMAS that's been involved with us since the beginning of this pursuit. So they're handling the environmental side, the civil engineering side of it, that'll help support me from an electrical engineering standpoint to help
Great.
deliver the project. So they will definitely be looking at that aspect of the job.
Perfect. And you think you can do this on time and on budget?
Absolutely, yes.
Perfect, because I'm your no change order girl.
Perfect.
So,
Sounds
love
good.
that.
We do
Okay.
accept ahead of schedule and under budget.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? If not, we have a motion and a second. Tammy, when you're ready.
Director Torres?
Yes.
Director Dinstead?
Aye.
Director Roten?
Yes.
Director Risby?
Yes.
President Gardner?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Okay.
Great, thank you, directors.
Congratulations.
Our next action item is to consider adopting Resolution 3300, supporting a Western Municipal Water District grant application to the Governor's Office of Planning and Research under the Integrated Climate Adaptation and Resiliency Program. Dr. Matlock.
Yeah, before she gets rolling, we're bringing this directly to the board. I mentioned this to the Finance Committee on Monday. We don't normally do this, but we do have a tight timeline. We got to have this in by, what, the 28th?
29th, yeah.
29th. So with that, Melissa?
Thank you. Good morning. So Western's planning pursuing a new funding opportunity called ICARP, which is the Integrated Climate Adaptation and Resiliency Program from the Governor's Office of Planning and Research. This program is planned for projects that are advance climate resilience and respond to climate risks. For this application, we're combining 2 different projects together in the Murrieta service area. One's our treatment for our new clay well and our regional intertie with Rancho California Water District. Both of these projects are already grant funded, so we're looking at this opportunity as the cost match, as what is allowable under both of those grant funding opportunities. So this is applying for $3 million. The application is due at the end of this month, August 29th, and we need a resolution to apply and part of our admin policy. So happy to answer any questions.
Are there questions?
No, move to approve. Thank you for your work.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Comment, Tammy?
We have none.
Okay. When you are ready, would you please do a roll call?
Director Torres?
Yes.
Director Dinstead?
Aye.
Director Roten?
Yes.
Director Risby?
Yes.
President Gardner?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
you.
Our our last action item is to authorize Western Municipal Water District's general manager to execute a Mills Pipeline Capacity Purchase Agreement and amendment to a 2020 option for purchase agreement with Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District. Mr. Barr.
So we've been preparing for this for some time. When we negotiated the agreements back in 2020, we set up future purchases. So this is part of those future purchases. So Tim has done an outstanding job working with Elsinore. They've been a great partner on this, and we're going to execute a portion of those future purchases. I also want to note that I did go to lunch yesterday with Greg Thomas, general manager, and he apologized for not being here to answer any questions, but their meetings conflict with our meetings, and they actually have a study session today. And so we've run into this numerous times where they've wanted to be here to talk about something that we have, but we have this constraint. So he and I both agreed that we probably need to do a better job of trying to get them to the committee meetings, which don't have as many conflicts. So we'll work hard on that. But Tim will present this. He's been the one leading the charge on the purchase with their staff. So Tim?
Thanks, Craig. So the Mills Gravity Line, as this board knows, is owned and operated by Western Water. It's a 14-mile pipeline that runs from the Mills Treatment Plant on Alessandro Boulevard down to the intersection of Temescal, Canyon Road, as well as and Cajalco. It serves water to City of Corona, Temescal Valley Water District, to Western Retail, to Metropolitan Water District, as well as to the City of Riverside. Metropolitan Water and the City of Riverside are currently not taking any water. Elsinore Valley in 2020 purchased 9 CFS of capacity, so it also serves Elsinore Valley. In 2020, they reserved the right to purchase an additional 12 CFS, which represents the remaining capacity in the pipeline. They put a deposit on it, 10% deposit, paid us $1.8 million for holding the price constant at the 2019 pricing. Doing so, they ended up saving about $4.5 million. In the 2020 agreement, they have also arranged financing. So Western will carry the financing of this project through 2040. Elsinore will make a payment of roughly $550,000 a year until 2040. The interest on that will accrue, and they will pay about $1.8 million in interest to Western. The finance team, Kevin and Allison, have been through this agreement and have looked at all the financing terms, and it seems that they approve. It's on the up and up. I want to thank legal counsel for putting together what has turned out to be a very complicated set of agreements. In 2020, the provision of separating the 12 CFS into individual pieces was not contemplated, so we had to create a first amendment to the agreement itself, allowing Elsinore to buy just a piece of it. They do intend to purchase the other 6 CFS by the deadline of December 31st, 2024. Their planning shows that they're going to need access to imported water at build-out, so they will be buying the rest of it next year. So Western will receive not only payment for about $9 million, half of the deposit that was put in place in 2020 will be kept on hold to pay for a portion of the next 6 CFS at the time Elsinore elects to purchase that. In addition, the benefit to this is there will be roughly $60,000 per year that Elsinore will now pay into the Mills Gravity Line Major Maintenance Fund, which is currently being covered by Western. So a lot of benefit here to Western, benefit to Elsinore. So with that, I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, are there any questions?
No, move to approve.
I have one
Is there a second?
question. I have one question, and then I'll go ahead and second it. But has Elsinore's board already?
Today at the
Executed?
study session, they're working on it right now,
Okay.
and it will go to their board meeting, their next board meeting.
Okay, all right. And just kind of a strange off, just because of something that happened at another board recently. Council, you reviewed these documents?
Yes, our office did.
Is Elsinore represented by BB&K?
Yes, they are.
However, they're using special counsel on this one, and
Okay.
it is actually Rattan and Tucker.
Okay, that answers that question then. Thank you. And I'll still move to approve, second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any public comment?
There is not.
Any discussion? If not, Tammy, would you please call the roll?
Director Torres?
Yes.
Director Dinstead?
Aye?
Director Roten?
Yes.
Director Risby?
Yes.
President Gardner?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Brings us to reports. Mr. General Counsel, sir.
Yes, two items briefly. The first is the FPPC has indicated that as of the end of the calendar year, they will no longer be providing the free online AB 1234 ethics training. Obviously, Western made that available to the board members and its executive staff earlier this month. So if you have anybody, friends, family, or other public officials who are interested in getting that free online training from the FPPC, that you'll want to have them do that before the end of the year. Second item is at the next board meeting, the first meeting in September, I'll be out of the town, and so Assistant General Counsel Holland Stewart will be attending in my place. So,
Great, thank you. Mr. General Manager.
All right, I've got a long general manager report today because we're going to go over our 2022-2023 accomplishments.
Can I request a break then? Just 5 minutes, if it's really long. I don't want to miss it.
Sure.
So.
Okay,
Up to
we'll take a 5-minute break and be back at 10:32.
Sure. Thank you, President. Sorry about that, Craig.
I know, that was not a like sneakishly like throwing thing, even me, I'm like, I would love to do it for the public. You're 9.5 hours, and it's like. This makes for a really long time.
That's why I wanted to make sure I knew that they
Membership at a winery, that's a yoga club, where twice a month they offer yoga for you a glass of wine. No one costs is the price of a bottle of discount. Like it's, what's that? Not while drinking after you got a glass of wine after. That was, that's fun. You're like, woo! Sunrise. That's right, more relaxed. A lot more people fall asleep.
We ready? Let's call ourselves back to order and go back to the general manager's report.
All right. So today I'm going to run through our accomplishments, and the board is aware of this. I've talked to the board about this in my annual review, but I wanted to share it so that the public could see it also, because we're very proud of our accomplishments this year. You'll notice there's more people in the audience today. I wanted to have the EMT here so that you could ask questions about any of the items in our accomplishments. It's all because of all the hard work that they do that we've done this. So with that, I've got quite a few slides and happy to answer questions as we go, but this is all what I think is great news, and we have had a great year. So let's go. Next slide. All right, so a year of impact. So this is just kind of a summary for the whole presentation. So we really feel like we've changed the conversation about water among statewide leadership. So last year, we were only talking about urban conservation as a solution to the ongoing drought, and that's not what you're hearing now. Now you have the governor and the Natural Resources Secretary and a lot of the statewide associations that are all talking about, we got to build infrastructure. And we feel strongly that we wouldn't be in that same position had we not taken a leadership role in changing the conversation. We have done an enormous amount of work regionally, not just, and you heard a lot of it from Heather. It was great. It was not orchestrated, but it was great to have her here talking about the partnerships that we have on a lot of those projects that she was talking about, but with our wholesale concept also has been very important for the region. Internally, we've reorganized and rebranded to strengthen Western's culture of service. That is very important, and the staff has really done a great job of carrying that message. Obviously, as the climate is changing and hydrology changed drastically this year, we had a huge shift in our drought response, and collaborating on that throughout our watershed and regionally has been a big effort, and we've taken a leadership role in changing that message and collaborating on messaging throughout the watershed. And then capital projects, we've had an outstanding year of completing these long-term capital projects that we've been working on. And then the board, obviously, and you heard more of it today, we are in heavy pursuit of grant opportunities. Next slide. So statewide leadership, Western has been very fortunate this year that we've been getting invited to the party, and we've been doing presentations all over the state and regionally. And this is a picture of me at Aqua, but it's not just me. Our staff is all over the place at conferences and presentations, and I think that is really important for Western to show our leadership on water issues. Next slide. So Solve the Water Crisis was how we kicked all of this off. So this was a statewide coalition that we formed, and we knew that the message needed to change in California. And so we worked hard to try and do that. And we needed to redefine, and you heard Heather say it, and Heather obviously has been a great partner on all these issues, but things have changed. We don't do things as we have in the past. The climate has changed. Water's not falling the way it has in the past, and dry periods are not like they are in the past. I mean, how many times have we heard the word record used in the last 5 years? Everything's a record, right? It was a record December rainfall a year and a half ago, and then it was a record 3-month drought. After that, the hottest January, February, and March on record, and then it was the driest 3-year period, and this was the record snowfall in the Southern Sierra. We set a new record at least every year. So things are changing. You can argue all you want about what's causing climate change, but what we see is things are changing. So Solve the Water Crisis, I think the timing was great. We created a group of 27 funding agencies, over 200 stakeholder supporters. I did over 50 presentations trying to develop the funding and the partnerships. The website of Solve the Water Crisis was getting almost 100,000 monthly visitors, and we raised over $400,000 to support the website and the outreach campaign. And I'm really proud of what we pulled off. Next slide. That led to action. So Solve the Water Crisis was talking about the problem and the need for action. So you can't put 27 general managers in a room and not have them start arguing very quickly about we better fix this and what are we going to fix. I think there were 26 different opinions on what we should fix and how we should do it. The interesting thing was that we were able to pull these groups together into one fix, and that was we have to have a better plan, and the state has to have a better plan. And the way we figured out that we could spur that plan was to set targets. And so we came up with the language for SB 366. That's a picture of me talking to Senator Caballero. That was at a CMUA legislative event. I'm on the exec committee at CMUA, so I have a unique platform to be able to work with CMUA and with Senator Caballero. And it's interesting, we were very fortunate to get her. She was actually, out of this group, she was the #1 target that we wanted to carry the legislation. And she's been very successful on water legislation, and after doing this with her and her team for a year, I see why. She is a fighter. The goal was to set targets. We're doing this on a statewide basis, but we haven't forgotten the local need. Riverside County is the fastest growing county in the country. We have growth needs. So we can't just pretend like we don't need water. And the reason we're getting statewide support is because all the general managers from across the state are saying the exact same thing. We need more water. We cannot continue to fight in this scarcity mentality over water. And so, this really resonated and it hit home. So as we did pass the Senate unanimously. Unfortunately, we ran into a roadblock in the Assembly. We're going to go back next year and hopefully get through the Assembly. But great bipartisan support in the legislature, co-authors, co-sponsors. It really was a successful movement so far, and we're not done. Next slide. Okay, let's talk regional leadership. Next slide. So we worked hard on enhancing regional relationships. Internally, we have excellent relationships with our member agencies. We get together every other month. The general managers all show up, come here, we have lunch. We talk about significant issues. It's not just a rote meeting. We actually bring important issues for discussion, and we feel strongly about supporting our member agencies. We give a lengthy MET report, a water supply report, and those meetings, they were not well attended in the past, and now everybody attends. And if they don't attend, they Zoom, and if they can't do that, they send a representative. So we have representation from everyone at those meetings. We also feel like we've picked up the ball on some of our other regional leadership with Riverside County Water Task Force. Sarah and her team and Michael have done a great job pulling together interesting topics. I think they're very interesting. I'm a water nerd, but I think this year we've really had some great topics, and the attendance has been excellent. We used to do it in here and we'd have 30 or 40 people, and now we typically have close to 100 on Zoom, and always looking to grow that. But if you look at the list of who's participating, we're really getting good participants. We get a lot of board members, we get electeds, we get their staff, and we got a lot of community leaders. So I think those meetings are really effective. The other thing is we recognized a while ago that we need community ambassadors. So that picture is our water leaders class. We just kicked off on Monday the next class, so we're in class number 2. So we're duplicating it. We think it is a very good model, and we need to grow water knowledge with civic leaders that aren't water people. And we want them to be advocates for what the water industry needs. And it's not just Western, it's for what the water industry needs. And our meeting Monday, there was a lot of talk about RPU and what RPU needs. It was really interesting. Next slide. As I mentioned, drought had to change. We've pivoted. Regional messaging, and Sarah's done an excellent job pulling together the communicators from our other major agencies in the watershed. We don't tell them what to say. We collaborate on messaging, and then we share that messaging with everyone and say, please use what we've done or modify it for whatever you need for your own agency. We've done a lot of coordination statewide with Aqua, CMUA on their messaging. We have done a lot of work with our commercial sector and our retail sector. So a lot of outreach going on and drought messaging. We're not forgetting our message that conservation is important, but we're broadening it from there. Next slide. So other regional things, I think you all recall Rubidoux Community Services District and trying to get them an agreement to move water to them. Seemed like such an easy thing when we started. And it actually turned into a huge philosophical discussion at Metropolitan about disadvantaged communities, state water project, contractors, and it ended up turning into a debate about, at Metropolitan, not with Rubidoux or with Western, turned into a debate about prioritization of who gets state water project at Metropolitan. Which member agencies get which drop of water, and do you qualify? And I don't even know how that, who qualifies in front of who? It's all water for our customers. Are we going to start having to argue about whose customer is more important than someone else's customer? It's amazing. And but we were right at the forefront. We were at the table. You know, I like Heather. If you're not at the table helping to plan, then you're at their mercy. So we were at the middle, and you know, I had the privilege of being called up to Metropolitan for a debate in their disadvantaged community committee. Marietta, we have an excellent agreement with Rancho California Water District. As the board knows, you know, that we did a lot of work to get there. I appreciate Rob Grantham and his team and the vision of our board and their board to develop these agreements to not spend additional customer money that we don't need to spend to duplicate infrastructure. And this was a shining example of how we can all work together to save our customers money. And then the city brought forward, and you heard about it today, the ARPA grant, $7.4 million. It's not our grant, but we're helping the city maximize the benefits for their grant to the benefit of their community. SARCUP, you know, Ryan and his team and Josh have done an outstanding job on SARCUP. This is building a regional dry year banking facility. So this is for the entire watershed. You know, we built, it was a $110 million program, $55 million of state grant money to build that program. We're not quite done building, but we're actually ready to take water. And thank you to this board for giving me authorization to go shopping with $20 million to find water. We want to put it into that program, and we're really struggling to find a path to get those drops of water out of Oroville here, but you know, we're not stopping there. We're looking for other avenues to get water here and other sources. So I haven't really reported back to the board on, you know, how we're coming on that 20 million, but I can assure you there's lots of irons in the fire to figure out ways to spend it. And this is the rare opportunity. We embarked 10 years ago on the SARCUP program for this year. We're going to take advantage of a wet year. And it's been a lot harder than we thought it would be to take advantage of a lot of water in the watershed or in the state. And it really gets back to everything that we're saying in California Water for All and SB 366. We don't have the infrastructure to take advantage of a wet year. And that's where the state is really missing the boat. And we're ahead of the state. Locally, we are way out in front of the state. We are preparing to take that water, and other agencies aren't preparing to move it. Next slide. Alignment with strategic priorities. So this board approved our strategic priorities. As a leadership team, the EMT out here, they pay close attention to those strategic priorities. We actually meet as an EMT and talk about the projects that we're emphasizing to meet our strategic priorities. So we use that in our everyday language. So superior service, resource management, financial stewardship, and elite workforce. Let me go through a few of each one of those. Next slide. Next slide. So superior service, you do a lot of these things, and you know, a lot of outreach, a lot of social media, and you're not sure how it's hitting. You know, does it land? The engineer in me is like, show me the proof. What's better? Well, we actually went out and looked. So we increased customer trust by 22%, achieved 97% positive or neutral customer service experience approval. We've increased our access to information by 17%. And internally, we've tried to really work hard to align our service with where it needs to be. And that's not just with the outreach to customers, but it's internal. It's how do we service each other and provide that customer service internally. And it's this group that talks about it all the time and then has to push it. so that engineering and operations are talking, and engineering and communications is talking about a capital project in Riverside that's going to flood a lane of a street, and we're out in front of it instead of getting complaint calls, instead of dealing with it. And I think the proof is in how we moved that forward and had very proactive meeting with the city and the city manager and the mayor and city council people with our board members to say, hey, in a few months, we're going to have a project that you may get complaints about. And we want to make sure you know that those complaints should go to us. It's our project, not a city project. But that's all about communication and preparing. As you know, we've embraced our brand, and we've worked that through everything that we're doing on our website with our customer outreach and internally. And we're working hard on our website design and making improvements there. Next slide. Some other standards that we watch. The board's aware of our low-income assistance program, so we spent all that money this year. That's a good thing. We've had a lot of years in the past where people didn't access that, and we would reach out, and this year, and I don't know, last year, we've been much more successful in our outreach because we were able to fully utilize that money. Supported 20,000 customer interactions in our customer service center. The one below that, I'm really impressed by. We've achieved a response time of less than 2 minutes for those calls. Go up to the next slide, completed 1,000 same-day service requests. That's new. That came from our own staff, our own field staff, that said, wait, a lot of these things we can address the same day. We don't have to put this stuff off. Let's have a target of, an achievement of doing this every single day. Regionally, we have pushed these water use efficiency landscape pilot programs with our commercial customers. So we've brought that back to the board. We're proud that that's in movement. And then it's a little small in the right-hand corner of this chart, but it certainly took a huge amount of effort by Derek and the development services team. But the pandemic did not slow down commercial development in our area. So 32 projects, 16 pipeline extensions, over 800 new residential lots and 2 million square feet of industrial facilities this year alone. So huge lift by development services. Next slide. In-house, so some of the things that we're doing, they're not world-changing, but they're changing the business internally. So this is a picture of our machine shop. The board went out and looked at the machine shop on our tour, and this is something that it matured internally, and this is our staff saying, hey, with our inability to buy product out in the marketplace and get things here, we could build these things faster and cheaper than we can actually buy the parts. So why don't we gear up to be able to build this stuff in-house, save time, save money, and hats off to the team and under Chris Fike, and they went out and bought used equipment that functions perfectly to do all this, and they're very successful in what they're doing. Relocated 400 feet of potable pipe in-house with our own staff. That's not using contractors. That's not paying profit. This is customer saving to our ratepayers. And then at the Arlington DeSalter, our water quality staff said, we don't need contractors to come in here and pay them to change these membranes. We know how to do this stuff. And so they took that on themselves. And so we've been changing those things in-house. It's not changing the world, but there are a whole bunch of little small steps that make us better at what we do. Oh, and by the way, they learn a lot more about membranes and how to clean them and how they last and when to replace them and when do you need to replace them. Because we do that in-house and we learn instead of a contractor just wholesaling, taking them out and charging us and putting them back. Next step. Next slide, sorry. Waterworks Wonders, this was a great event, 1,000 attendees, 40 booths, huge community support. We had great feedback on social media. Staff really enjoyed being there, watching the kids and working with the kids in all the booths. The staff, put together all those activities. Each staff was assigned to do that themselves. We didn't tell them what to do. We said, come up with activities, and they came up with great activities, and we're looking forward to doing that. Hats off to Grace. Who knew how many permits you actually had to get in order to have a parking lot party? Yep. So anyway, we're looking forward to the next event.
And more In-N-Out burgers next.
Maybe. We'll see how that works out. That's right. There's only so much. Maybe we need two trucks. Well, I don't know if they have 2 trucks. But next slide. Resource management. Next slide. So wholesale concept, I've been talking about that for years. It's been percolating and maturing for years. This is the year that we turned it on and we operated it. And so a landmark 4-party agreement with Western Harupa, Corona, and Norco. This is such a unique program for a water agency. When I started here, our retail service area was the Riverside retail service area, 100% dependent on Met water from Lake Oroville. And when I got here, I talked to John. I said, that's really a bad place to be, John, because what happens if the pipeline breaks or Oroville dries up? Or there's a problem at Metropolitan and there's a fight about water. What do we do? And he knew, and he had already been working on stuff, but we kind of picked up the pace on that. And so we knew we needed a backup supply, and that's where Arlington Desalter and Chino Desalter Authority came from. We bought capacity in those projects so we had water, and that water is 100% local guaranteed water. It's a desalter. You're going to pump it out of the ground. In fact, we have to pump it out of the ground. We pay for it regardless. So the wholesale concept was very unique because who paid for the La Sierra Pipeline, the Sterling Pump Station, and CDA was our Western retail customers to build that supply reliability. So we came up with the wholesale concept to say, wait a minute, we can get other entities to buy into that program and utilize that water when it's not an emergency. And so huge financial benefit to our retail customers and a big financial benefit to those agencies and a reliability benefit to the entire region. So we're really proud of that program. We kind of have the training wheels on it. Ryan convinced me that we should only have 3-year agreements because we're trying to figure out how it's actually going to work. So we come back to the board in not too long to hopefully enter into longer term agreements, but it's going very well. Next slide. Comprehensive water quality program at Marietta. You all have heard this, and I thank the board for your support. We have spent money on this, and that system was neglected when we took it over. We've been struggling to reverse that neglect, and it's really taken a lot of additional work. Hydraulic modeling, the pipeline cleaning has really been difficult. There was, embedded material in those pipelines because they hadn't been cleaned before we took that over. So that's been difficult. We're making headway on that. We've tried a whole bunch of different cleaning methods, and we're starting to see the light. But, we also have groundwater problems over there, and you all know about the North Well and how we had to build that, and fixing up one of the other wells with water quality issues, and the grant funding that we looked at today is to help that other well. So lots of issues going on down there and lots of solutions, and it's a long-term project, and I appreciate the board's support to get there, but it is really a priority with our operations team and our engineering team to really solidify our groundwater resources out there so we're not buying expensive Met water, at least any more than we have to. We want to get back to the 50-50 mix that was the long-term plan. We haven't been there for a few years as we have challenges with those wells, but we're going to get back there. Next slide. Energy management, there's a lot going on energy management and emergency management. So we hear that from the board. We've committed to do regular updates to the board on emergency management because we want you to be assured that we're ready for emergencies. Of course, every emergency is different, and you have a plan, and the minute an emergency happens, you have to be able to modify your plan, and that's why we do these tabletop exercises so that we're comfortable and we're ready to make changes as those emergencies change. Next slide. Financial stewardship. Next slide. We're very proud of our AAA rating from Fitch. Moody upheld our AA plus credit rating. We're getting ready next week with Standard & Poor's. We're getting in front of them next week, talk to them about credit rating. So we're not resting on our AAA rating. It's important. We want to maintain that. It saves us a lot of money in our investments and our borrowing rates. Next slide. Pipeline replacement funding. So funding the Thank you. Funding that replacement is a challenge for all water agencies. We good? Yeah. All right. No problem. You'll hear other entities that have a effective life of pipelines of 300 years. No pipe lasts 300 years. What they're saying is we don't have enough money to replace it except on a period of 300 years. So we just keep our fingers crossed in that case that the pipe stays intact. We're not there. We don't want to be there. Kevin and his team have come up with some very private sector financing tools so that we're not there and we can replace pipe. Derek and his team have done an excellent job of packaging. Every year we have to package pipelines and we have to keep moving that forward. And it's important so that we don't have these pipelines that are failing all over the place. Next slide. Grant funding, this is just an awesome story. There's a lot of money out there and our team has been doing an outstanding job of securing it. You know, and look at this, it's like $60 million between federal and state funding. It's a huge amount of money. My concern as general manager is we don't want to miss deadlines, and we are getting so many grants that we are struggling to have the staff to build the projects and keep up with the grants. So we're actually hiring some people right now in the recruiting process. Candy and her team is doing an outstanding job helping us get those people on board, but we don't want to give money back.
That's right. Great problem.
It's a great problem to have, and Derek and his team, they're We Can Do This team, but we have a huge amount of work in front of us, and so we're bringing on more people to help us do that work. So it's a good story, and we're really happy to, as Director Denstead said, this is a problem we've wanted to have, and we're there. So good news. Next slide. Elite workforce. Next slide. We feel strongly that developing future water professionals is our mandate. This is in our DNA. If you've ever gone to the Galleria in their job, I forget what it's called. Yeah, it's their career night, and we're upstairs, along a walkway, and it's packed. It's absolutely packed. And it's not just packed with kids that are looking for careers and college students. It's also packed with people who are out in the business world and they want new jobs. But it's packed with our ops team. We ask for volunteers, and they want to share what good career opportunities there are in the water industry. And so we have a huge team that's out there. It's just not that. We're doing field trips. We've got a good relationship with Riverside Unified. They come out and do tours at RCRA. We're doing career videos. We have a career day at Rubidoux High. We're participate in speaker series. We tried a new thing, a teacher externship. I didn't know what that was. Candy educated me on that. We actually had a teacher request to come and spend a week here instead of us going there, and kind of job shadow to see what we do so she could talk to her students about that. My response is, hey, how about next year we have 20 teachers here doing that instead of one? Yeah. And so we'll work on growing that. But that was really, really a cool thing.
And guidance counselor.
The whole thing.
Absolutely.
Next slide. So that's kind of in a nutshell There's a lot more, and I think the board will remember, I think I gave you 12 pages of very small print of all the detailed things that we accomplished, and this team put that together. It's, it's every pipeline, it's every valve, it's every recruitment, it's every design, it's every communications thing that we did. So I burdened you with all of that. But trying to highlight it and put it into the most significant things that I think the public should know that we're doing is a little more difficult, and hopefully we hit the mark. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions about this, and then I have just a couple other brief highlights.
Are there any questions on this?
There is a comment. We are looking at the awards list. So here's a question for you. Have we ever hit this many awards before? Ever?
It's just another record.
Yeah, just one more record. I like our record better than the driest year on record. I don't know. We haven't been around forever, and I would guess not, because there's a lot more awards, and we apply for a lot more awards, and our team is out looking at awards because we're really proud of what we're accomplishing.
Well, I can tell you that as I've sat here on the board for a while now, that this has been the longest list I've ever seen. And we are certainly hoping to add to this list for next year. And I think that there's probably more on here, because I could recall a couple more that.
It's not a complete list.
Yeah, I don't think it is a complete list, and hopefully next year we'll be able to add one more award on this that will be for the large business of the year for Marietta Wildemar Chamber, which we have
A lot of
been,
pressure.
which we have been nominated for this year.
We'll keep our fingers crossed.
So those are my comments. A job well done.
Thank you.
And I would just like to say to all of our staff, from Craig down, congratulations and thank you. You do a really outstanding job. You make it a fun place for me to show up and do some things. And I do hear things in the community about, yes, I want to go work at Western. Or I did go to work at Western, and I'm glad I did. So congratulations and thanks.
Well, I will add that the Western is making Candy's job and Bianca's job easier, because we have a very extensive interview process, and between top workplace honors and that feedback in the water community, Tim and I interview everyone that comes into this organization or gets promoted within this organization. And I can't tell you how many times people sit in the interview with us at the very end of the process, and we ask them, well, what interests you about Western? And they said, because everyone's recommending that we work at Western. Mm-hmm. And so we're very proud of that.
Well, and I talked to directors at other local water utilities and occasionally general managers, and one of the most common threads is, you stole another one of our best employees.
Mm-hmm.
We're not stealing anybody.
We didn't
We're
steal
offering
them.
opportunities.
We had a better offer.
Straight up theft.
Okay. Anyone else? Not?
All right, just a couple more things. We're continuing to build our leadership team. Nate Sussman is here tomorrow and Friday. So Friday, he works with the EMT all day, and tomorrow he works with our managers' teams. We have two different cohorts, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. So EMT doesn't just get leadership training, our managers get leadership training, and supervisors. We found that training to be very effective at the EMT, and so we're sharing it. Special thanks to Harupi Community Services District, because they're allowing us to use the Desi House. I don't know if you've been to the Desi House in Eastvale. It's a really neat facility. So they allow us to do that. Tim sent me hot off the press that Ganesh contacted him, and Elsinore approved the purchase also of the 6 CFS and the MGL. So that was a quick turnaround. Last comment, Tammy's going to be out of the office on medical leave. So if you need anything, contact Candace or myself, and we'll get you taken care of. With that, I am done. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, directors' reports. SAPA canceled their meetings for this month. They will meet next month. MWD.
Oh, boy, where do I start? It was a long couple of days for committee. So a couple of big highlights out of the 500 pages of additional stuff that I got to read for these last 2 days. One, the assessed values came out. Metropolitan has now had an assessed value in all 6 counties of $3.8 trillion. That is with a T, dollars. Out of that, we gained some value, but Riverside was obviously out of all the counties under the assessment for the percentage. We hit a total of growth of 9.5%. Everybody else in all other counties was behind us. So between Eastern and Western, our growth is hitting tremendously. Eastern grew by 1 percentage point more in the assessed value this year than we did. However, we still have a larger percentage moving forward for our assessed value and our voting shares. So our vote went from 3.74 to 3.83, which was almost 1% of change in our growth in our voting shares. So just kind of interesting, and it was definitely highlighted by Metropolitan staff, the growth that Riverside County is experiencing, and obviously what we're experiencing in the state and the SANDAG numbers and the various different things that they're getting. So that's only going to continue to increase because we're so much further from build out in this area than, say, landlocked Los Angeles, Anaheim, Compton, those type of areas. So we'll continue to see that uptick as we move forward in those assessed values. So that's the reason that the meeting was postponed for a week in August, because all of the assessors need to get the tax roll values to Metropolitan, and there's deadlines. Yeah. it was from last year, it was 3.74%, and we gained and went to 3.83% on our voting percentage for the block in Metropolitan. So we still sit as number 7th, the largest agency on Met's board. Okay, so a couple of things that really are going to be a topic of big discussion, and I've got lots of notes this time. So we got to go through and sit and talk about the long-range financial plan needs assessment. This was 42 slides that we got to sit through on this, along with the report, which I'll be covering in depth with the general manager and finance team. It's 138 pages. And one of the things that was talked about and noticed about this particular document in comparison with the business modeling moving forward is they don't kind of jive on some things of what the assessed need is, how many additional acre feet, how that is going to be obtained. But one of the strong points about this document, and make sure that we move forward on this for the long-range financial planning, is the fact of this is how rates are going to be established and what we're ultimately going to pay. And you know, we like level, steady. We don't like big jumps and craziness going on. So we want predictability, we want stability, we want to be able to move forward with that. So these documents really have to jive. This was such a huge thing to digest that the board kind of went, you're really dropping this on us at the last second. We really complained about the fact that staff put that placeholder in there but didn't release this report until Friday night. So I had no opportunity coming and going to a Monday meeting to have a discussion with you guys about this and cover this 138 pages of very technical, high-level financial documentation and what they're trying to do. So there was some discussion. It's supposed to be coming to the agencies. There's supposed to be a roundtable discussion at the managers' meeting about this, and it's going to now be put off until, I believe, October to allow for time for discussion and proper vetting. So any changes and any kind of concerns or any kind of commentary that we'd like to add to this document, staff at MET is welcoming that we provide them with that so that they can make changes to the reports moving forward and take that into consideration as they put the final draft together. So we'll be having lots of discussions about how this is going to shake out and what we need to do with that. And how it's going to play out for us, because this is trying to get done. We're trying to get this approved. Staff would really like to see this approved by November as we roll into now budget discussions coming in for the next year and setting rates moving forward. So it's going to be a lot of work and a lot of discussion moving on this. And I'm looking forward to having a very lengthy conversation in-house here over what our perspective is and get your take on that, Mr. Mascaro, over what the topic of discussion is and how they're assessing growth, which was one of my questions in here, and the scenarios that they're using based upon high demand and high volume and what they're going to do with that. So a lot more to come on that. It is a work in progress that will take quite a bit of investment of time. And then engineering and committee was pretty standard. I don't know that there was anything that really jumped out to me as far as engineering was concerned. It was all pretty standard in what we expected to go forward with and move on that. As far as the conservation outreach and the messaging, there was a lot of discussion about that and some of the well-received communication that's been going on with all of the member agencies and how they're advertising and how those dollars are being spent, because Metropolitan's board authorized, I think it was $10.5 million over a stretch of 3 years for a communication plan and outreach over conservation and making sure that people are aware of what the conservation dollars and rebates are available to them and making sure that they are dialed into that so that we can get adjusted water savings along the long haul. And, you know, I kind of look at that as still the low-hanging fruit, but I don't know how relevant that is for us out here in this area, considering we've got so much building going on and all of these water improvements are being incorporated as they're doing the build. So I'd kind of be curious to see, because it's obvious to me that we cannot conserve our way out of this. I mean, you know, when you're looking at conserving and putting $17 million towards conservation programs, is that really the best and highest and best use of the money to be able to do that? Or is it, you know, that there's only so much low-hanging fruit, and is that $17 million investment better somewhere else for a better long-term project for us? So just a philosophy question fundamentally, and would love to have that discussion with staff as to what our perspective is, because all of our new builds are already incorporating, you know, they're doing our drip, they're already putting in low-flow toilets and shower heads and water-efficient appliances. So just kind of looking for our philosophy point. And where's the sweet spot? Where do we need to be positioned for, you know, moving forward on that? And then we obviously had a conversation about the reserves and our long-term investment activities and where we're at with our financial ratings and what our bond authorizations are going to be. So that obviously is going to play into the rates long-term, and that's going to play into all of our financial modeling moving forward as well. So that will be part of the structure of communicating, because, you know, everybody's doing all of their credit ratings and everything at the same time. So I think that's probably the highlights of everything that I had going on. Oh, there was one additional conversation about 366. You know, talking with the legislative platform and moving forward on that stuff. you know, Metropolitan is still on the fence about this, and I basically asked the question, why? Because they put a support if amended. And so I asked specifically for language, what is it that's giving you heartburn over not pushing this forward and having the 800-pound gorilla join in the fight? And so that language has been forwarded to me. I have now forwarded it to the general manager, so there will be ongoing discussions, and that's going to be a point that I'm going to drive home. You know, this stuff was here to help you to maintain Metropolitan on doing, you know, 366. We need to jump on this bandwagon. And so we'll be working hand in hand with that, and I'll be continuing to push that ball forward as we have those discussions. So I think that's pretty much the highlights of everything, just a couple of little things going on at Met.
Yeah. Thank you. Chino Basin Water Master will meet next week. Chino DeSalter Authority.
We had a fairly short meeting on August 3rd. Couple of contract amendments. One was for environmental cleanup services and solids handling. I had a note on that one that CDA is looking for a place or a market for pellets and sludge. So if anyone knows any of those, you know, you could share that. And another amendment on Chino 1 DeSalter VOC treatment project for construction management. And then the last action item was purchase of Rotork master stations at Chino 1 and Chino 2 DeSalters. And that pretty much covered that meeting.
Great, thank you. RCRA.
RCRA will meet in September.
Okay, WRCOG.
WRCOG, so it was a pretty light agenda. There is 2 items to call attention to. One, there's going to be some ongoing discussions over membership to WRCOG and how membership dues are going to be assessed moving forward, because there's some outside interest and some parties that are wanting to join, and so we're going to be looking at the bylaws to see how that affects the overall organization and how we want to move forward on that. So there's going to be some big discussions over that. And then there is definitely some discussion over legislation and WRCOG stepping back up into more of a forward role in supporting legislation and putting together packets. And so there's going to be a committee that's going to be formed on that to have discussions. And I'm sure that there's a person in our audience who will be interested in partaking in some of that and making sure that we're on the right side and pushing bills forward that are not harmful to the membership. And certainly, you know, would love to see more of a platform too on some of the water rights stuff and having WRCOG take a position on that and explaining that to the membership of what that really means in the long haul for all of us. So, and that would be about it for WRCOG.
Okay, thank you. Sarah.
They canceled, so we will meet next month. I have not had a Soror RCRA meeting in the last 3 months.
Okay then. Aqua Region 9.
Oh yay, I finally get to say next month.
Okay, director's comments. Start with Director Torres.
No, I have no comments.
Okay.
Oh, happy back to school week.
Traffic's terrible.
Director Rogan.
Whoops. Oh, I guess I have my microphone on. I just wanted to mention a couple of highlights. There were really a lot of highlights, but I'm going to narrow it down to the CASA conference. This was my first time being able to attend a CASA conference, and I really got a lot out of it. It was, you know, I kind of went with, you know, in the back of your mind, you know what the topic is. And of course, there's little jokes about what the topic is and that kind of thing, but it was really interesting. And, you know, biosolids, big topic. PFAS, big topic. They had some, what I thought were really good speakers. One was the previous, from 2011 to 2022, the 28th Chief Justice of California, was a speaker, and now she is president of the Public Policy Institute of California. And right after her, there was a panel on of biosolids experts, and I really felt that the folks that they chose to participate in that panel were from different outlooks and different kind of sectors, and so you got this very interesting viewpoints, and a couple were a little contentious, nothing horrible, but, you know, you could tell they didn't agree about certain facts or what was coming, kind of a thing, but that was engaging. And then for lunch, our own Grace Cardenas was the MC of the lunch and all the awards, and she did a wonderful job. Yeah, super good. And then, there was a section on recruiting new workers to the water sector, which kind of touched on that, Craig, with your, you know, the college and career fair and all the different things that we're doing. One that was particularly interesting to me, it was Braden Mitchell from City of Roseville, and I can send the information. The City of Roseville and their utility have created a twice-a-year, 40 students each, utility field day. And they bring the students to them and go through, you know, all the different, now they also do electricity, so little different, but they've just gotten such a great response, and their staff super enjoys doing it. And anyway, I thought that was, he got the most questions of anyone on the panel. Not that the other ones weren't good, they were fine. And then Director Risby and I, because we had not had enough of biosolids, attended the statewide biosolids meeting. And it was packed, the room was packed, so other people must be very interested. But yeah, that was this page with a bunch of notes that I probably don't know if I can even decipher. And I won't go into, I promise. But again, very interesting. I felt like by the end of and then we had a half day the next day, and just really there were federal and state updates, and Juan Esquivel, chair of the State Water Board, was the closing speaker, and so it was just right on point, I thought. And the length of the conference was good. It was basically all day Wednesday. You could have gone on Tuesday for some other things, but all day Wednesday and then half a day Friday. And so you didn't really have people leaving early because it was kind of condensed into a good time frame. So yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought of something else I was going to say, but I don't remember what it was. Oh, my overall takeaway was it's a whole new set of acronyms for wastewater. But I was starting to recognize some of them as the conference went on. And so I feel like I got a good familiarity with different aspects of it, but it certainly left me curious for more. So I'm already looking at the calendar for the next CASA conference in January. So I appreciate Western as an agency sending us to these things, because I think they're so valuable. And I did have breakfast with a gentleman who's actually retiring in December, and he's from, I don't have the whole name, Dublin something. And of course, I had to bring up Solve the Water Crisis and SB 366, and interesting conversation with him. But he did write down SB 366 to look more into it. And apparently they signed on as a interested party in Solve the Water Crisis, but he has what sounds like a unique makeup of the agencies that he oversees, and a lot of folks like on all different pages. And so they didn't pursue any more in-depth support of Solve the Water Crisis. It sounded like that was kind of his call, that reading the room that he manages. But he was definitely interested in the bill. So I think that's probably more than you all wanted to know about CASA, and Director Risby probably has a few things to add. So And then the only other thing is, do you want me to mention Dickey now or when we adjourn?
Let's finish the
Okay,
director's comments and then we'll do that.
okay.
Director Denstedt.
Yes, thank you. I was at the CASA conference too, and it's just a bummer that I missed the biosolid thing. So, yeah, I'm glad that you guys were able to pick up the ball on that because I had to attend the caucus meeting, so I was online doing that. But, you know, good on you guys for sticking in there, okay? But yes, I love those speakers as well. Director Roten had mentioned, you know, when she was speaking up there, she was such a dynamic speaker and so many things that she touched on that were so relevant. And being part of now the Public Policy Institute, she really gets it. And that was very evident. And she's very passionate about what she does. So really came away with a great feeling after she had talked and did all that. Grace Cardenas, I have to give her some props. Okay, Grace, go ahead, stand up. We have to give you some props because you really did a bang-up job, okay? And you started the conference off with a little anecdote and got everybody rolling in the room, which really engaged the crowd. And so kudos to you for doing an outstanding job because I know you were hit up at the last second and as soon as you got in there and had to really prep and work for it, but it went off without a hitch and you represented Western just like we expected you to. So thank you for being there, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And then the other person that I thought was really entertaining was Jimmy Dang, who was from Oro Loma Sanitary District, and he was the one that talked about, that was the mitigating system disruptions portion, and he was the guy that was talking about the water gods that came in on that holiday weekend, and there was nobody there on Sunday, and then Monday was a holiday, and then they come back to this 6 inches of water sitting in there and not knowing what to do to mitigate it. And I think he said he was the interim at that point in time and didn't know if he was going to be moved to the permanent manager after that was all said and done. So he was very engaging and very creative in his solution solving and talking about everything that kind of failed and went wrong and what they learned from it. So kudos to him for having the courage to come in and talk about that and sharing the experience with everybody. So, and then one other takeaway that I'm going to say from the conference, you know, this is one of the smaller conferences that we attend. CASA, it's small but mighty. There's a lot of people that really are passionate about what they do. We do have a lot of consultants and a lot of groups, you know, engineering folks that do attend that, more so, I think, than the actual agencies that send contingency of representatives. But one of the things that I want to tell you is that when they found out who I was there with and why I was sitting on the board at Western, because some of these folks are inner workings on their teams. They're not the guys that come and do presentations at our board level, you know, the VPs, the presidents, the CEOs of these companies that come and pitch all these things. And one of the things that was very obvious to me after so many people came to give compliments about working with our team, and that they look forward to the next project they can come and work with our team because we get the job done and we get them all the information and we make the process smooth for them transitioning and coming forward. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. You know, you are the elite workforce, and the customer service that you provide and how you represent, there are a lot of people that go out there and they talk about where they're going to do their next pitch, what bids they're going to put in, what agencies they don't want to work with because it's too much of a hassle, and we're not one of those. So kudos to the team.
Thank you. Director Rizvi.
All right. So that biosolid section was amazing. I learned so much more about code registers and what's going on. And I got to talk to Rob afterwards and, you know, as a chair of Sura and Rick Ra, I thought that was the most interesting and most knowledgeable part of the conference that I got to learn a lot more. And I'm asking a lot of questions from them. There's a lot of legislation going through. those subjects, and knowing what's going on was very interesting. So that, and my favorite section was the earlier on Tuesday, there was a talk about epidemiology and COVID and how they were tracking diseases. And they've been tracking diseases through wastewater for, since 1930 they talked about, but really having COVID really kind of, they took it off. University of San Diego really volunteered themselves, and during COVID, they were having their, sections of building where they were just testing their wastewater and was able to see what's going on with the disease, and they were able to control the disease. So they said that they can find disease in the wastewater RNA 2 weeks ahead of time. So that's how they were able to protect some communities and were able to test. And that's what they did with monkeypox as well. So after learning from COVID, they were able to control monkeypox really well because of that. And they are looking to work with municipalities and to see if they can volunteer and work together. But they did talk about there's a lot of privacy concerns that's coming up that's why they have not been able to really take it off. But it was very interesting learning. They have an application called COVID Poop that was, yes, and that's how they're tracking. Yes, that's how they're marketing.
I could just see the character for that.
Yes, it was really funny, and a lot of people talk about that. Yes, so that was very interesting, and we learned a lot about that. And Grace, you were amazing. Did you figure out, is it CASA or
Oh, yeah.
yeah, so.
CASA or CASA?
CASA. So, thank you. It was wonderful, and it was great representing Western and learning there on CASA thing. And another report, on July 19 board meeting, I reported a FPPC violation or a concern, which I have received a report back from them that everything has been cleared. They are not moving forward with any investigation or any information, and I've shared that email with the legal counsel and our president. So just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I'll just say that does confirm everything that Director Rizvi had indicated as far as the FPPC action was made, and there is no violation. Some things were reported, they looked and they said, yeah, but that's not a violation, which is good. But just a reminder again to all of us, if you know there's an investigation, you need to tell us, or we need to tell ourselves, because our rules require that. But this one is all done and behind us, and that's a good thing. I got to represent Western at an Eastern event when they had Secretary of the Interior Holland come and listen to a presentation. All the local USBR folk were here as well. Congressmember Takano was here. There were some state legislative folks. And it was a really good event. Joe Mawad, the general manager of Eastern, gave a really good presentation on what is Eastern doing and how are they leading in some areas and where do they want to go. It was very informative. It was a little like Heather Dyer's presentation here today, but of course focused on Eastern. So it was a good event, lasted about an hour. She hopped back in the limo and went on to her next event, and it was nice to get to go. It's not often that you get a cabinet level person come locally So I think she, in my career, is the second cabinet person I've ever met. So it was interesting. And let's see. Oh, the last thing is, I just want to let everybody know that we will be adjourning in honor and memory of Dickie Simmons. Director Roten is going to talk about him a little bit. He's longtime Eastvale resident and a good guy and passed away recently. Laura?
Yes, thank you, Director Gardner. So I'm just going to read from just a couple passages from a really nice press release that Herb Community Services did regarding Richard Dickie Simmons. He always went by Dickie, but his official name was Richard. He was a former member of the JCSD Board of Directors. He served from 2016 through 2020, serving as president in his final year on the board. He was integral in, or integral, whichever you want to say, in shaping many policies and critical projects during his tenure at JCSD. He passionately advocated for Eastvale's cityhood, eventually being appointed to the Eastvale City Council for a time. Furthermore, he served on the Eastvale Schools Committee, Eastvale Parks Commission, and took leadership roles in the Eleanor Roosevelt High School Football Booster Club and Baseball Booster Club. He was deeply committed to the success of local schools and recreational programs. He was a United States Marine veteran, having served in Vietnam. He was also a member of the Los Angeles Police Department for nearly 30 years. He was actually a detective, at least for part of that time. And he was a board deputy for Los Angeles County Supervisor Don Knabe for 17 years, demonstrating his commitment to public service and community welfare. And Don Knabe was was honored to be able to attend his celebration of life this past Sunday, where I'm going to estimate at least 300 people were there. It was held at the JCSD Community Center over in Eastvale, and it was packed. In fact, I stood for probably half of it before I spotted an empty chair. But what this doesn't talk about, first of all, I feel like all he's done, he would have been like 100, but he wasn't. He accomplished all of that in a shorter period of time. But his family, he had 5 children, and they got up as a group and spoke and just told some just wonderful stories. But then when his 12 grandchildren got up and talked about the kind of grandpa that he was, in addition to his community service, he would pick them up at school and take them to Jack in the Box, or he'd be at their water polo event or whatever. In the last, I guess, 20 or so years, a lot of their family settled in Eastvale, so he was able to be close to most of his family. I think one of his kids might have lived out of state, but he was very patriotic, and I remembered that about him, and he always had the most joyous smile on his face. You'd run into him in Costco, and he was smiling, that was how he was. But I had an urge that I thought, oh, what should I wear, And I had a skirt that was red, white, and blue, but not like blatantly in your face, red, white, and blue. I was so glad I wore it because I would say well over half the room was all in patriotic attire of some sort. So they gave him a beautiful send-off, and he will really, really be missed in the community, but his legacy will definitely live on in his family members and friends and community members. So thank you for letting me share a bit about him, because he was one of the good guys.
And when we come back from closed session, we will formally adjourn in his honor and memory. Are there any requests for future agenda items? Hearing none, you do have in your packet some informational items. Anybody have questions on those that you'd like answered before we head off to closed session? Looks like not. We do have a closed session. Jeff, do you want to introduce that?
Yes, we'll be discussing the pending item of litigation in closed session and reporting out afterwards.
Okay. Do we anticipate a reportable action?
We do not know.
Okay. We will come back regardless of whether there is a reportable action and formally adjourn. But there's probably not something to hang around for to see what we did. So, thank you all very much, and we will adjourn to closed session. Okay, we are returned from closed session. Mr. General Counsel, do we have any reportable action?
There is no reportable action, no.
Okay, with that, we will then adjourn in honor and memory of Dickie Simmons. And thanks, everyone. We're adjourned.
Recording stopped.